What is happiness? I have a lot of reasons to talk about happiness because it took me a really long time to figure out what it was. So that's why I wanted to make this video about what is happiness. We all wonder, what is it? It's something that escapes us. It's something that some of us spend our whole lives chasing. And so I wanted to make this video to talk about what is happiness, to shed some light on it, and to hopefully help you find your happiness. So I didn't find my happiness until about 37 years into my life. So for 37 years, I was basically depressed, anxiety ridden, stressed, frustrated, unhappy with myself, unhappy with where I was, unhappy with the outcomes I was having in my life. And I was just completely and utterly lonely and miserable. I spent so many nights wondering, why me? Why am I in this life? What am I doing here? I have no point. I'm not good at anything. I don't understand anything. Nobody loves me. And basically life sucks. I was born in Miami, Florida, to two parents, adoring parents from Cuba. They came here separately. They met in here in Miami, and they had me. And then 4 years later, they separated. So when I was 4 years old, my mom and my dad split, and I made it because of me. I made it because he left because of me, because I wasn't good enough. And that's the story I told myself for the majority of my life. So I wasn't good enough for him. I wasn't good enough for my mom. I wasn't good enough for my friends at school. I wasn't good enough for my first boyfriend. I wasn't good enough for my first experience in school, any experiences in school. I wasn't good enough for anything. I basically lived my entire life with the sense of not being enough. And so I began doing self-destructive behavior. I started going out with my friends in middle school and high school, going out at all hours of the night. I started doing drugs. I did everything and anything to forget who I was and to pretend I was someone else, because who I was wasn't good enough and who I was didn't make me happy. So I just was searching outside myself. And that led me into college. I almost didn't graduate high school. I got kicked out of high school, actually, for my absences. I was just avoiding school at all costs. I didn't want to be accountable. I didn't want to be responsible. I didn't think I was worth it. I didn't think I was worthy enough to be there. And all I wanted to do was escape because I was unhappy. I was lonely. I was miserable inside. So I had a wake-up call in high school. One of my guidance counselors, while I was in night school, actually, because I had gotten kicked out of day school, told me that I could have been valedictorian if I would have started my high school career with the types of grades and focus that I was having while I was in night school. And when she told me that, I was like, is she talking to me? I was like, no, you're talking about the other person next to me. That has nothing to do with me. And she was like, no, you could have been that type of student. You could have had that type of outcome. And when she told me that, it hit me really, really hard. It was one of the first turning points in my life where I realized that I did matter, that I did make a difference. And so after she told me that, it kind of lit a fire under me. And I started trying really hard at school, really hard at life. I started turning my life around and realized that, if it was going to be done, it was going to be because of me, because nobody was going to do it for me. And if I was going to be successful, if I was going to be happy, it was going to be because of me. So I started working really hard. I put myself through college. I worked myself through college, and I graduated with a bachelor's degree in English literature. and I started my career in communications, which then led me to marketing. And all throughout that time, I was just, working for the man, like they say, and trying to gain that title, that recognition. I'm the director of marketing of XYZ. I'm the marketing manager of whatever, whatever. And so I spent my whole life searching and chasing the dollar, chasing the paycheck, chasing the director role, chasing the definition of what I thought happiness was. In relationships, I did the same thing. I chased a image of what I thought a relationship should be rather than what it really meant to me. And so first I didn't want to be alone. So I was one of those girls, my friends would say I was always the girl with a boyfriend. So even all through high school, middle school and high school, I had a boyfriend. And so I didn't want to be alone. That's number one. But then when I wasn't alone, I would make the person I was with miserable because I was so unhappy with myself and with my outcome, with my surroundings, that I would make them unhappy as well. And I would push them away. I would push most of my relationships away. And then I would blame it on them and make them the demon and make them the bad one. And I would move on because I'm very good at moving on. I'm very good at being resilient and closing people off. And so I did that for most of my life. I ran and chased and escaped. And it wasn't until I was about 37 years old that I remember landing in my body. I don't know if you've ever had that experience, but I had a sense of that I had finally just arrived on this planet, in this body. I had been like floating like in another realm almost throughout all my 20s and most of my 30s. Throughout my 20s, I was a nervous wreck. I was depressed. I was, in and out of bad relationships. I was being very bad to myself. I was, going out, drinking. I was getting way too drunk. I have stories of me. There was one story where I threw up in a taxi cab because of everything I had drank. The taxi driver threw me out and my friends were helping me and I fell asleep on the grass. That's how drunk I was. I was just doing all types of self-destructive behavior. I was just, floating around, like not caring, and also just very sad that I couldn't find what I was looking for. I couldn't find happiness. I was just so desperate. I just wanted to be happy. That's all I wanted. And so I just kept trying and trying and trying. And even while I was doing all this self-destructing behavior, I just kept on trying and kept on reaching out, kept on looking for mentorship, for help. I would read books. I would do anything I could. I remember reading the book, The Power of Now. And I remember the first time I tried to read it. It's by Eckhart Tolle. My eyes glazed over. I couldn't even get through the first paragraph. But I forced myself. And I remember somebody saying, oh, sometimes if you can't get through a book, open the book to a random page and just point at a paragraph and read that paragraph. So that's how I started reading The Power of Now. And it was one of the first things in my life that pivoted my direction into a positive direction. And I remember those words stayed with me. And so all throughout that very dark period of my life, depression, I would go out drinking like on a Thursday or Friday, let's say, and then I would stay in bed in my house by myself with the doors closed all Saturday, all Sunday, eating, just hiding and eating and just hoping that I can heal myself back to happiness, heal my energy back, get my energy back up so that on Monday I could be, the vibrant, happy, go lucky person that everybody thought I was. On the outside, I was always very happy and motivated and positive. And on the inside, I was dying. I was sad. I was lonely. I was empty. And so when I was 37, I landed in my own body and I realized that I was actually here. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was, a greater power that gave me that. But I realized that I had just arrived and I said to myself, what have I been doing for my whole life? And what I had been doing is I always thought that happiness was what other people had. I always thought that happiness was, oh, look at that couple that looked like they have everything. Look at that woman that has a career, that has this, that has that. And so I would always try to mimic or shadow what other people were doing. And when I didn't reach it, when I didn't attain what they had, I thought I wasn't good enough. Again, it would just confirm my belief that I wasn't good enough. And so I always thought that happiness was outside of me. I thought happiness was something that I had to look for out there. And for many years, I didn't even know what happiness was. I was searching for happiness all these years, my whole entire life, searching for happiness. And I didn't even know what it was, to be honest. I didn't even know what I thought it was, what I thought happiness was. And so I just kept on seeing what other people were doing, seeing what other outcomes people were getting, material things. There was a long time where I thought material possessions were happiness. And so I gathered and accumulated material things. And none of those things made me happy. I thought that a relationship would be happiness. And I accumulated men and I accumulated relationships and I had relationships. And those didn't make me happy. So nothing made me happy. Nothing on the exterior that I would search for, that I would pull towards me, would make me happy. So why wasn't I happy? I wasn't happy because I wasn't happy with myself. I didn't have appreciation for myself. I didn't have appreciation for anything that I had in my life. All I did was focus on the bad. I always focused on what I didn't have. I always focused on, oh, I got my high school diploma. Okay, but I don't have this. Oh, I achieved my college degree. Oh, but I don't have this. I don't have that. So-and-so bought a house. I haven't bought a house. So-and-so has a car. This, or whatever it may be. So-and-so got married. I'm not married yet. I would always compare myself and I would always just downplay and downsize myself and my accomplishments. And so my definition back then was completely different to what my definition of happiness is now. Back then, it was all about material things. It was all about gaining, achieving. It was all about exterior circumstances, things outside of me that I thought would make me happy. And none of them did. None of the things that I brought into my life filled me up. I was always still empty and lonely and hollow inside. And now I realize that happiness doesn't come from outside. Happiness had to come from within me. I had to go through the dark night of the soul. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that, the dark night of the soul, but it's an experience that unfortunately it sucks because it's something really, really hard and deep and dark that you have to go through in life sometimes to realize things. But I'm grateful now that I went through it. And that's why I started my company, Divine Journey, because everything that I went through in my journey, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything made me who I am now, and everything on that journey was divine. So I learned that happiness had to come from within me. But what does that mean, really? Because I didn't even know what that meant until I actually started experiencing it and doing it. But happiness is a choice. Happiness is something you choose. Happiness is a choice to realize what you have and focus on what you have and choose not to focus on what you don't have and what's not there. Because we're vibrational creatures and the universe is made up of energy, we vibrate at a certain frequency that attracts things to us. It's scientifically proven. So when we're focusing on what we don't have, what's happening is that we're now attracting more of what we don't want and what we don't have. So in essence, what you're doing is, instead of bracing yourself for impact and being like, oh, I'm going to be worried about this so that it doesn't happen, what you're actually doing is worrying about it and bringing it into your life, because you're vibrating at that frequency and it's coming towards you rather than going away. Also, when there's things that you're resisting, you're actually making them persist. Carl Jung said, what you resist persists. And he was right. So when you're resisting something, resisting somebody that you don't like,